For my project, I want to see how to prove the chemical reaction in Asian method of rice fermentation. In rice fermentation, the sugar in the rice should transform into alcohol, in this case ethanol, carbon dioxide, and energy. This experiment will be done in 4 days, and day 0 as the start of the experiment. To prove the chemical equation, I'll perform some tests. On day 0, I'll do iodine test to prove the presence of starch in rice. The next step is to prove the presence of ethanol, which I'll do with 2 tests. First, we will start by measuring liquid or ferment with the refractometer on day 0 as a baseline. Then redo the measurement every 24 hours. Second is by performing the iodoform test on day 4, which is at the end of the experiment. The last experiment, I'm gonna prove the presence of CO2 by doing a balloon test. That's why we're gonna put the rice in the bottle, then we put the balloon on top. The growth of the balloon should prove the presence of CO2. If my predictions are correct, the iodine test and the iodoform test should come out positive. The Briggs scale, by using the refractometer, and the balloon circumference should show an increasing of numbers. We need cooked and cooled rice, rice leaven or Rhizopus oryzae, sterilized utensils, water, sterilized jar, sterilized bottle, a balloon, a rubber band, a scale, and a room thermometer. A very important tool that we're gonna use is a refractometer. This refractometer is designed to measure alcohol content in a solution. And we're gonna measure the rice fermentation every 24 hours with this refractometer. To prove the presence of alcohol, we're gonna do a iodoform test by using these simple lab tools. So here are the results of my experiment. Let's start with the iodine test. We put drops of iodine on the rice before the fermentation, and as you can see, there's a blue-black color. What does this mean? This proves the presence of starch that will turn into alcohol during fermentation. Now let's check the measurement of alcohol using refractometer. The Briggs scale shows an increasing number compared to the baseline, day 0, proving the initial hypothesis. The measured change happened after day 2 of fermentation, showing a difference of 29 degrees Briggs. Day 2 shows the highest content of ethanol, and the number on the Briggs scale declined on day 3 and day 4. The temperature was stable from day 0 to day 2, then increased on day 3 and day 4. Based on research, the highest concentration of ethanol was achieved at 23 Celsius. The lowest concentration of ethanol was at 33 Celsius. This was based on the effect of temperature on Chinese rice brewing with high concentration pre-steamed whole sticky rice. Now the iodoform test. Adding iodine solution with sodium hydroxide and rice wine give the result of yellow precipitate and antiseptic odors, proving that ethanol is present in rice wine. The presence of carbon dioxide. The balloon circumference shows an increase of number, proving the presence of carbon dioxide as predicted in the hypothesis. So this is day 0. As we can see, there's no air. And here's day 4, which has increased the circumference and volume. Conclusion. The experiment proved most of the chemical equations for rice fermentation except for the presence of energy produced during fermentation, which I'll do it maybe in the next science fair. During the fermentation, there was a major increase of ethanol production between day 1 and day 2. There was a decline of ethanol content in day 3 and day 4, which probably related to the increase of room temperature. Between day 0 and day 1, there was a major increase of carbon dioxide production. I'm half Indonesian, and every time I go to Indonesia, when there are religious festivities, they always offer rice wine as a dessert. They don't encourage it to give lots to kids, and I wondered why. I just recently started Acellus, and I was fascinated by science, a subject that I wasn't really interested before. I found this experiment complete because there's physics, biology, chemistry, and even coding and math. 1. Before I arrived at this concept, I tried many other experiments and I failed. Then when I did this experiment, it was the most possible and interesting experiment. 2. I found it hard to measure the alcohol until I researched and found out that we have a refractometer, which made it simple to measure alcohol. 3. Chemical substances. Even though I did the iodine and iodoform test, I would have liked to do other experiments, but due to COVID, I wasn't able to get the chemical substances. 1. The temperature is not optimal for the fermentation. 2. The rice leaven is not active or it's expired. And 3. Tools are not clean or there are traces of fat or bacteria. 4. As I explained, the fermentation should have been done in a dark place. Maybe there was a presence of light while the fermentation. 1. There were some things that I wasn't able to physically do, so I needed the help of my mother. 2. I did the discussions with my parents to get their scientific advice. 3. I rewatched videos from Acellus that are related to my experiment to make sure that I got right. In a way, I feel relieved because before I was anxious that my experiment would go wrong. Even though I proved most of the chemical equation, I still hadn't done the experiment to prove the presence of energy, which I hope to do the next science fair. So altogether, I'm happy because it was my first science fair. As stressful as it is, I'm happy to do more.